All right. There are those out there who are starting to roll in. Just give a couple minutes for others to join, and we'll get started. Okay, so we're at that 2-minute mark. That's the magic number. Let's get this kicked off. So welcome, those of you who have joined us and those of you who are rolling in. We have a fun partnership today between myself representing Guardz and Paul representing his business. And we're going to dive right in, try to share a little bit about based on the title here, why your MSP clients aren't terrified of cyber criminals and how to wake them up. And this is really just about communication at the end of the day, right? I think all MSPs and MSSPs have similar challenges when they're speaking to small businesses about how to try to bring that right amount of awareness without creating the FUD, right? I think that's a dirty word in our industry, but it is important to get the essential risk mindset into our customers' brains and to help them understand that these aren't just buzzwords when we're talking about cybersecurity, that these are real issues that can affect them. So with that, a quick introduction of my good friend here, Paul Green. Paul runs a company called MSP Marketing Edge. He's an expert in marketing for the MSP community. He's based out of the UK with hundreds of MSPs all over the world that he partners with. Paul focuses on a few different things. He helps MSP build leads, and he helps them understand how to generate content and to reach out to customers and communicate with customers. So these are his main focuses. As you can see here, Paul has a good amount of experience working as a journalist and a radio presenter. Once he starts speaking, there'll be no mistaking that in his voice. With that, I will quickly jump over to introduce myself. I lead the product team at Guardz. For those who don't know, Guardz is a cybersecurity platform unifying a whole bunch of different security controls together in a single pane of glass. The goal there is to automate detection and response and help bring security to small businesses that otherwise would be vulnerable. So this is who we are, and I think our chat today will again lead a little bit along the lines of how to communicate, how to talk to customers, but also I think security is not everyone's expertise, right? So we understand that many MSPs are getting pulled into the security world, sometimes kicking and screaming, but the small businesses out there can't always afford to have both an MSP and an MSSP. So the expectation has fallen over the last several years on the MSP to become that security guidance and that security expert. So hopefully what we talked about today will help move things along in that direction. So with that, I think I can remove
technology.
This, oh yeah, always fun. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, so Paul, I don't know if you want to take it away, maybe add to a little bit of what I said, and certainly we can have a bit of a conversation here as we move into the content.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Thank you so much. And you mentioned FUD earlier, Doni, which of course stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that is absolutely the wrong way to educate people about cybersecurity. The challenge that we've got and what we're going to talk about in the next 20, 25 minutes or so is that ordinary people They don't know what they don't know. So those decision makers that you want to reach, the business owners, the business managers, they don't know what they don't know about technology, let alone cyber security. And as Donny said, I work with 700 MSPs all around the world, and we often have conversations, and many of those conversations are about how do I better protect my clients in a way which helps me to sleep better at night. And you've got great toolkits such as the toolkit that Donny was talking about in Guardz. There's so many tools available to you, but I'm sure, you know, if you're an MSP, that you've been frustrated by the fact that your clients won't invest in their own protection, which is absolutely nuts. So what we're going to do is I've got some slides. I've got some bits and bobs that we're going to bring up on screen. We're going to have a chat about why people don't invest in cybersecurity, why they don't understand why it's such a big deal. And we've got some suggestions for you. In fact, 3 R's we're going to come up with, the 3 R's, which will help you to sell more cybersecurity to your existing clients and to new clients as well. So why don't ordinary people buy cybersecurity? Why don't they take it seriously? Well, the first thing, as you can see here on the screen, is that it's only really at the fringes of their attention. So CrowdStrike, right? Obviously, the whole world sat up and looked at that because that took down, was it 5 million PCs, something like that? But that was a highly exceptional event. The reality is that there are cyber attacks and cybercrime incidents every single day in almost all countries of the world. But you and I know about them because we read security blogs. It's discussed in forums and in communities that we take part in. But to ordinary business owners and managers, it doesn't affect them, or they don't see it in their news. If it doesn't hit the mainstream news consumed by ordinary people, then it isn't a thing for them. So it's massively only on the fringes of their attention. The other problem you've got is that they don't really understand it and they can't explain it. So I was talking to an MSP a couple of months ago that I work with, and we were talking about ransomware attacks. And he was saying to me, have I ever seen a ransomware attack? Now, I'm not a tech. I'm a marketing person who's been working with MSPs for 8 years, but I've never actually seen a ransomware attack on a computer in front of me. I've only seen it on screens or had third-hand accounts of it. And he says, when you actually have to deal with a ransomware attack, it's terrifying because you're on the back foot right from the get-go. Because of course, the cyber criminals have probably been in that system for some time, and they've locked all the doors that you could potentially get in to kick them out. And he was saying that that's terrifying. And if only ordinary people could understand what it's like to switch on all of the computers in your business and it's all just red screens asking for Bitcoin, and there's no way back from that, or the route back from that is not quick and it's not cheap. So again, the ordinary people that we're trying to reach, they don't understand this. They don't, they may have heard of ransomware attacks, but they don't really understand what it means. They've heard of cybercrime, but they don't understand it. They don't know what business email compromise is. All of these things are not concepts that they are particularly familiar with. So you start throwing out those terms, ransomware attack, business email compromise, they just don't mean anything to them. You say cybersecurity to the average business owner, and what do they think? They think antivirus, don't they? They're not thinking about the whole suite of cybersecurity at all. I think the other problem that you've got, and the third problem of this, is there's a perception still amongst small businesses. Remember, small businesses make up around about 95% of all businesses. There's still a perception today, and you'll know this from talking to your clients, that it only, let's put that in speech marks, it only happens to big businesses, that small businesses are not targeted by cyber criminals. We have a lovely phrase that we use in the MSP Marketing Edge materials where we say, all businesses are being targeted all the time using automated tools, because of course that's what's really happening.
Maybe I'll even jump in for a second. From our experience at Guardz, we see and we hear this all the time, but our dark web analysts are often exploring exactly what's happening in the latest forums, and we see these attack as a service becoming more common and cheaper. So basically, it's a toolkit, attack as a service, right? So it used to be the hackers had to go where they thought they were going to get the most money. Now, for $50 a month, anyone can call themselves a hacker, spin up a toolkit, phishing emails, fake bank websites, fake Microsoft login pages, whatever it is, and then just spray and pray, right? So they just have to put that out there and see who takes the bite. Usually the ones who take the bite aren't the ones with a dedicated enterprise security team, right? So you'll really see the threats start hitting those small businesses because the protection is just not there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as I say, I'm not a tech myself, but to hear something like that anybody for $50, $100 a month can just rent the tools that they need. I mean, that's nuts, isn't it? And it just changes it, completely changes everything, because suddenly there will be thousands, I guess, potentially thousands of attacks heading towards a small business every day. Just nuts, crazy. So what we recommend, I mentioned to you the 3 Rs, Donny, and let's explore those 3 Rs in detail. So I'm going to tell you what the 3 Rs are, and then we're going to go into a little bit of detail about each of them.
Sure.
So those of you watching at home or in the office, write these down as we go through. I know the recording is going to be available, but these 3 are the 3 ways to get through to the people that you most want to reach. Here are the 3. The first of them is we need to make cybersecurity relevant to them. We'll come back in a second to how to do that. The second thing is we then need to repeat what we're talking about again and again and again. And the third thing we need to do is to remove the choice. And actually, towards the end of this webinar, I am going to suggest that when you take on board new clients, you don't allow them to join you unless they are willing to invest in cybersecurity at what you would consider to be a high level. But we'll come on to that. Let's talk about that first one. So let's talk about making cyber security relevant to them. And I want to first of all show you where I used to live about 25 years ago. So Donny, you mentioned I used to be on the radio. I was on the radio for 10 years and I gave all of that up in 2005. But at one point, I was living in a city called Nottingham in the UK. And of course, everyone outside of the UK knows Nottingham as the place where Robin Hood comes from. And whereas in the UK, everyone knows Nottingham as it's a bit of a crime centre. And I shouldn't really say that because my brother lives in Nottingham, but hey ho. This was my flat. I actually went back and took a photo of my flat about 3 years ago. And it was number 22. And you went up those little steps. And I lived in that flat for 6 months with my then girlfriend, who was called Amanda. And in that 6 months, we were burglarized twice. So they broke in. It was the middle of the night. We didn't hear them. They broke in. They took the TV. They took a load of stuff. And then once we'd replaced the TV, they broke in again and they stole the second TV. And apparently, according to the police, that's normal for criminals, or certainly was for burglars back in the day. And we ended up having to put bars on the window. That's why we moved. We moved to a village after that because no one wants to live in a house where you have to have bars at the window to keep you safe. What's interesting is we talked, it doesn't look a very nice place, but actually it was quite a community driven place. And we talked a lot to our neighbors, and it's really interesting. That street, we were the first flat to be burgled for a number of years. And it was interesting how many of our neighbors, just as we were moving out, were investing in extra security. They were getting burglar alarms. They were getting better locks on their doors. And they were starting to take that security real. And the reason they were starting to take their home security real was because suddenly it was relevant to them. Their neighbor had been burglarized. So suddenly it was very possible that they too could be the victim of a crime. And I believe, there are all sorts of stats out there. I was looking at one just yesterday that said something like, I think it was like 70% of businesses were targeted or suffered some kind of cybersecurity incident last year. And we've all seen stats like that. And there are stats that come out every day if you go and Google them. The reality is, if those kind of stats worked, then we would see people investing in cybersecurity all the time. But they don't. Stats don't work, so burglaries do work. And in fact, where I live now, I live in a very nice village on the edge of a city called Milton Keynes in the UK. And there's only a few houses on our lane. But again, there was a burglary the next street along, and slowly all of the houses along here, including myself, we've got burglar alarms, we've got increased security and cameras and all sorts of stuff like that. So this approach, which works very well in physical security, can work very well in digital security as well. What I think is you have to make it real to them to make it relevant. And there are lots and lots of different ways that you can do that. The easiest way, of course, is dark web monitoring. And Donny, you've got some things to say about dark web monitoring, I believe, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it's it's really a core part of a lot of what Guardz does as well. When we're first looking at a company, whether that be someone who's onboarded onto Guardz or actually could even be an MSP's prospect, right? We help them generate these prospecting reports, which can be based on leaked credentials. So that's like an external surface scan, kind of how the hacker would look. And then also we do a deep dive into the dark web, and we look at any repositories containing leaked credentials from the domains associated with an organization. So it's a great way to get started in a conversation because it hits home very deeply. It's very non-intrusive, right? All you need is the company's domain, and you're off and running. Do a reverse DNS lookup. You can find other related domains, and then you have something in hand, right? Our prospecting reports is something you can bring in hand, show up at that first meeting, and have that conversation. So we've gotten great feedback that helps make it, like, when that business owner sees either his name or one of his colleagues' names and some leaked credentials, you show the first and last actual letters or character, but you obfuscate the rest. It starts to become personal. It starts to be something where they look and they say, okay, there's real risk here. It's not the selling of the FUD like you warned against earlier, Paul. It's something that's tangible, real, and personal. So that's been great for us. Aside from the dark web, what else are you seeing that you think is useful in this space?
No, it's a good question. I think dark web is a must. I think all MSPs should be using it because, as you say, it just makes it relevant. If there is your colleague's credentials that are there for sale or have been breached X number of times, you can't get around that. I think the other thing you can do though is some kind of show and tell. I know of an MSP who has a laptop that has ransomware on it, and he took the Wi-Fi card out so it can't spread, and he keeps it booted up and keeps it plugged in, and it means that when he goes to sit down with clients, he can say to them, well, look, have we ever talked about this thing called ransomware? So what happens is people do this, they do that. You can't get your data back unless you pay lots of money. It's very hard to undo, but also you really shouldn't pay them the ransom. It's one of those where there is no clear route out. By the way, this is a laptop from a client that we rescued from ransomware. Let me open it up. Look, tap, 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 tap. Nothing happens when I tap. It's just this red screen or whatever it is. So it's, that kind of show and tell. And this is real. This was a business 2 miles down the road from you. Again, that's something that can make that very real. I think the key with just
kind of backup point there. Just don't connect that laptop to your customer.
That's why it's got no Wi-Fi card, so it can't jumpware. Yeah, that would be a fairly. I think that would be the end of your business, wouldn't it? If you infected your customer systems with malware in some way.
I'm sure it's happened.
Oh, I'm sure it has happened, and there are MSPs that probably don't want to talk about that. I think the key with all of this is you have to come at this not with thinking that you want to talk to their brains, but you've got to talk to their hearts. When we talk about any kind of marketing for MSPs, I'm always telling MSPs that ordinary people don't make decisions about switching from one MSP to another with their brain, because the brain just doesn't have the facts. Because to the ordinary business owner, all MSPs look the same. They say the same thing. Their websites, they might have different pictures and different words, but they're all more or less the same themes. They're all very samey. And the brain, which only works on logical facts, cannot tell whether this MSP is better than this MSP. So it delegates the decision down to the heart. And the heart makes emotional decisions based on, do I like this person or do I not like them? And we can sell more cybersecurity to protect people in exactly the same way. Why did I spent thousands on a burglar alarm system and cameras. I have internal cameras and external cameras on my house here. Why did I do that? Because emotionally, I want to protect my home. It's not about protecting my house. A house is just a bunch of bricks with stuff in. But this is my home. This is where I live. This is where I work. This is where my kid lives. This is the place we've poured love and money and attention and everything. And this is our safe place. So of course we want to protect that from unknown threats. And that was an emotional decision when my burglar alarm company turned up with all their array of things they could do, and I went for the best option. I did that not based on logical things. I did that based on emotional things. So it's really important when you're talking to your clients that you're not talking about, losing money or losing productivity. They don't really believe that. They don't really believe. There was a stat out yesterday, the day before, that the average ransomware account, and this is in UK money, I'll put it in dollars actually, it's about $1.4 million. The reality is no small business would ever pay that, but they would pay $50,000 if they could get that cash together. The reality is no business owner is ever going to believe they're genuinely going to lose $50,000 or genuinely have, this interruption. But when you start talking to them about, hey, how can we, what would happen if you couldn't use your computers, which by the way means your VoIP system doesn't work, which by the way means you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't access any data. There's another MSP I know here in the UK who does a really cool thing. When he's visiting potential new clients, so prospects, he will take them out of the building. He'll take them physically outside of their building and he'll say to them, I just want you to imagine that you no longer have access to any of the computers in that building. Now, sometimes he does that. He might talk about backups. It might be, protecting them from fire and flood, but it equally works well for cybersecurity. Imagine if you couldn't get back in the building. What would you do to run your business? And of course, they pull their phone out of their pocket and they say, well, I can do it by my phone. And he'll take the phone off them, which I think is a bit gutsy, but he'll take the phone off them and say, oh, the phone doesn't work either because all of the data on your phone has equally been lost in this attack. And when you do that and you physically remove someone from their computer and their staff are all removed from their computers and their phones don't work, and they realize that actually very quickly with the removal of their devices and their data, there is no business. And you and I know that, and we know that certainly you know that about the people you protect, but ordinary people don't know this. So it's a kind of a scary thing. And we have to remember that they are more motivated by the fear of loss than they are the opportunity to gain.
Yeah, and I think part of it is the loss, like you're describing, of access, or part of the being able to operate their business. But the other part of it, I think, is also the reputational loss. The idea, if you can implant in their head the idea that someday they might have to call up their customers and explain to them that their data has been compromised, or explain to them that they won't be able to provide the same level of business or security when they're doing business together that they once did. That's a very emotional conversation, right? Especially if they've spent years building up their business, gaining the customers, and then to potentially lose that from a reputational standpoint is very scary.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because no one wants to make that phone call. In fact, I would agree. That's more scary than losing money or not being able to access your data. Having to actually talk to another human, someone who you've built up their trust in you, and tell them that you got things wrong. I completely agree with that. So that's relevant. The second art was to repeat. And we mentioned that I used to work on the radio. One of the things my bosses used to drum into me, I was just on a music radio station. I was like a music DJ, and what they used to say is, whatever commercial messages or like competitions or promotions we've got, you have to keep repeating it because people just do not hear it. You can say it 10 times in a show and they will only have heard it once. Well, they'll have heard it 10 times, but they'll only perceive it once. And it's exactly the same when you're talking about cybersecurity to your prospects and to your clients. You see, the problem you've got here is you're battling a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. So this is an amazing part of our brain. It has lots of functions, but the one that's most relevant to marketing is it acts as a sensory filter. So if you think about it, we don't have to deal with all of the information coming in from our senses. So just now, wherever you are in your business, just sit and look at your screen. And do you notice like stuff on your peripheral? I see loads of stuff. I'm in my home office. I see loads of stuff in my peripheral vision. But it wasn't until about 2 seconds before I knew I was going to say that I actually saw it. So my eyes are seeing this really wide range of information, but all I can see is Doni on my screen in front of me, right? Because the reticular activating system is filtering all of the rest of the information out. This is the same if you play, or if you, let's say you're going to buy a new car. Let's say you want to buy yourself a Tesla and you currently drive a Chevrolet, and you're driving down the road in your Chevrolet. And the second that you decide you want to buy a Tesla, you start seeing Teslas the other way. Every now and again, you'll just look and there's a Tesla, and there's a Tesla, there's a Tesla, right? And they were always there, but until you decided that it was relevant to you and you trained your reticular activating system that you want to see Teslas, up until that point, you really didn't. You didn't see them at all. You didn't perceive them. You see them, you don't perceive them. So this is why with your clients, especially with clients more than with prospects, you have to keep saying the same things. Every single QBR, quarterly business review, I prefer to call them strategic business reviews because then quarterly is overkill. But every single meeting you have with your clients, you talk about cybersecurity. You repeat the same themes. You talk about all of the things we've just been talking about that make it relevant. You know, if they're not interested today, they're not going to upgrade today. You just keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. And obviously you're doing this across a number of meetings. So you might sit down with 5 or 6 clients in a month. And at the end of that month, you think, I'm sick to death of talking about cybersecurity. I'm talking about it all the time. No one's interested. They're idiots. I'm not going to help them. But the reality is, of course, the first client that you met with has heard this from you today and 6 months before and 6 months before that. He's not hearing it every single day. The second client that you met with this month, she heard it from you today, and she'll hear it in 6 months' time, but she won't hear it again. So you might think you're sick to death of talking about cybersecurity, but I promise you, you owe it to your clients to break through the reticular activating system within their brain. If they don't believe it's relevant to them, their brain will filter out that information, as it does for all of us on each day. So that's the second R.
Those are great points. Maybe I can just add on a little bit. I think there's two things that came to mind while you were talking there. I really like this this concept, this psychological concept, at least. One thing is, I think some MSPs take the approach of a consultant, right? They're coming in to consult, and a consultant will tell you the same things over and over if that's the things that they believe are most important for your business, right? That's their job. Tell you the same things. Others, MSPs, have a little less comfort in that role, and maybe resort to trying to sell line items, right? And if you're selling line items, it's much harder to keep trying to sell the same thing over and over. But it's much easier if you're consulting. You're saying, guys, you're trusting me to come in here as the expert. Here's what you need to do. I tell all my clients this. All my clients must do this. So that consulting role, I think, will maybe empower you to be repetitive in a way. And then the second thing that I was thinking about is the same principle also applies around security awareness for the employees of that business, right? A huge part of them being able to prepare for the attacks that are inevitable is to have that security awareness training, the videos, the phishing simulations, all that stuff. And that is repetitive, right? Like some employees will say, why do I have to do these every month or every quarter? This is annoying. But the truth is, only through that repetition do they get prepared. So that's, I think, a really important part too.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Let's move on to the final R, which is to remove choice. And this is a slightly controversial one, but I truly believe, and I know there are many MSPs that feel exactly the same way about this, that you should lay out exactly how it should be for the clients, and to a certain extent remove their option to say no. And I base this on kind of thinking about medicine. If you're ill and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, we think you've got this disease or this problem, and this is the medical treatment for it. The vast majority of people, even when they do some Googling and they'll come up with alternative treatments or maybe even get a second opinion, the vast majority of people most of the time will listen to their doctor, because their doctor has trained for, 7 years just to qualify, plus the 10 or 15, 20 years experience on top of that. Even when we're well, we always think we'll do it a little bit differently. But when we become ill and something's wrong with us, we do most of the time tend to listen to our doctors. So I think it should be, as a cybersecurity consultant, when you're talking to your clients, obviously you don't have to take the treatment in the same way that your clients don't have to take the treatment from you. But I think you can actually be stronger than doctors, and you can say, look, if you want to work with me, you have to work with me on my terms, because I need to sleep at night knowing that you're protected. So for new clients, that's really easy. And it is literally, it's my way or the highway. And, when someone wants to join you, you say to them, well, we will set you up from day one with an advanced level of security as standard. There is only one level of security in our business, and that is advanced. And we're not going to talk about things like cybersecurity stacks and, all of that stuff, because they don't care. They don't care about the details of how you do it. They just want to know that you're protected. Let's be honest. You have clients right now, I know you do, who have quite a low level of security, but they perceive that you are looking after them and that you're on top of the cybersecurity. Even if they've said no to you and they're not signing up for things you've asked them to sign up for or not upgrading, they still perceive that you've got their back, right? And that's a very dangerous situation to be in. And I think every MSP, and you can do this from this point forward, you can literally draw a line and say, right, the next new client, they by standard, they must have an advanced level of security. And that advanced level of security is whatever you want that to be, so that you sleep at night, so that and I know we can't protect everyone from everything, but there is a level of acceptable security that you can take people up to. So it's really easy for new clients. The difficult one is with existing clients. And I think there are two ways that you can do it with existing clients. The first is that please upgrade. Please, this is where you are. You've been with us for 3 years. This is the security you're at. But in that time, in that 3 years, the whole space has changed. AI has changed a lot. There are new tools. There's the hacking as a service, as Doni was talking about. And I would love you to upgrade to here, because I'm not sleeping at night thinking about you, because I believe that you are at risk of a breach, and I want to upgrade you to this. And yes, that's going to cost you $25 per person per month, or extra, or whatever it is, whatever that price is. But you've got that route, and it is the please upgrade, using all the things we've talked about, making it emotional, making it real to them, making it relevant. The alternative to that is that you just upgrade them, and you tell them you are upgrading them, and they have to opt out of the upgrade. Now, this is a gutsy thing to do, but it can be done. I'm going to show you something now. If you want to take a screenshot of this as I show you, you're more than welcome to do this. So what I'm showing you here is, this is actually a resource we give to our MSP Marketing Edge members, and it is exactly this. It's a letter that they can take and rewrite if they want to, and I'm only showing you part of the letter, of course, but it's the standard upgrade letter. So just telling clients, we are going to upgrade you to this, and then there's a thing at the bottom which sort of says what they can do if they really don't want to be upgraded. There's a list of all the extra things, but they have to opt out. They have to choose to opt out of it, rather than it being a case of, please, can we upgrade you? What are your thoughts on that, Doni? Do you think that's the right thing to do, or do you think that's too gutsy?
I mean, I like the gutsy aspect of it. Like we discussed before, that it's such an important piece for an MSP to communicate to their customers. And I think the stronger you can do that communication, again, without the FUD, right? It's not about making them scared, but it needs to feel real to them. So I think it's the right way to go. If you can do it, again, it's not every situation, and not every MSP is comfortable, but I think it's a great direction. And I think having the concept of mandatory security as part of your package will only help you. I mean, from a business building, from a liability perspective, from purely just at the end of the day, from the human relationship that you have with the business owners, for them to understand that you're not just an IT guy. It's not just break fix. It's not just antivirus and some email security and backup for business continuity. We're in a new age now, right? The regulations and insurance and just the landscape itself, I think, requires bold moves. So it's bold, yeah. Paul. I like it. I haven't seen it firsthand in action, but I think it's a great approach.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me throw one more thing in. This is the final thing we're going to talk about before we wrap up, which is, you know, it's all very well. It's easy for me, who's not an MSP, right, who doesn't have to sit down with business owners and persuade them to protect themselves. The business owners who are swanning around in like $70,000 cars, but won't spend another $25 a month on their business. I know that happens, right? So it's all very well for me to say just upgrade them, but actually there is a tool that you can use to upgrade them. Now, again, screenshot this if you want. Please don't just copy it, do your own version of it. But this is something, again, we give to our MSP Marketing Edge members, and it's something we give to them to help them sleep at night. And it's a very powerful tool. This is what the tool is. It's a very simple disclaimer where you run through all the things that you have advised your client, and you make a note of the things that they've said no to. And then you ask them to sign it at the bottom. Now, I'm going to show it to you. As I say, you're welcome to screenshot it. The really important thing with this is not a legal document, right? Any lawyer, especially in the US, but any lawyer anywhere on the planet would look at this and laugh. This is not a legal document. This is not going to give you a level of protection. This is not something that you can pull out if your client is breached and they come running at you. The purpose of this is it's designed to be an awareness tool. It's the final thing when someone says, no, I won't invest, you pull this out. And ideally, you pull this out with them at a face-to-face meeting, because this tool, and say, take a screenshot, feel free to zoom in on it. You go through a series of security measures and you ask them, have you got this? Have you got this? I know you haven't got this in place, and you're putting X's or ticks in the box, whatever is relevant. You've got some critical security measures, and then you've got some strongly recommended security measures in there. And this is almost a bit of pantomime. The checklist is to show them just how much protection they are turning down. So you go through it, no, you don't want that, you don't want that. And then the really powerful bit, and this is the pièce de résistance, is right at the bottom. There is a little declaration, and this is what the declaration says. And remember, this is your client that's signing this. I understand from the above tables where my business systems are currently protected or where I need additional support. I'm aware that if I've initialed I don't want, and actually that's more, I forgot to say that, rather than you ticking it, get them to initial I don't want, because when someone writes something, psychologically, it makes their brain think, well, this is a lot more important. It's like signing something makes them realize it's important. I'm aware if I've initialed don't want, my business is vulnerable in these areas and may not meet compliance standards. I understand that it's solely my responsibility if my business suffers adverse effects from failing to be protected in these areas, and I will be charged at emergency rates if my business is breached. Sign there, please, put your name and put your date. And as I say, the main goal of that is not to provide you with some kind of legal protection, because that is not. It might help, but that's not its purpose. The purpose is almost any business owner on the planet who truly cares about their business will come to sign that and will pause, and they'll just say, right, can we just go back over this a second? And when they say, can we just go back over this a second, what that means is they're starting to wake up. And so without using fear, uncertainty, and doubt, you could argue there's an element of fear in a checklist like that. I would say that's the ultimate tool to make them realize this is really important. Just them saying, well, can we just go back over this a second, is actually them opening the door to let's have a conversation. And we talked earlier about having, advanced levels of security as the standard. You may do that, or what you might do with your more difficult clients who don't want to invest is you might have 3 levels of security. You might have, hey, let's call it a bronze, a silver, a gold. And I know MSPs who use tool sets such as Guardz, and they subscribe to everything and use all of the protections on all of their clients, but they don't tell the clients. So they know that they're being protected well in the background, but some of their clients pay good money for that. Some of their clients don't, but the MSP wants all of the clients protected. It's just the clients don't know that they're being protected. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that approach, Donnie? Is that something you recommend, or do you think it should be done a different way?
I think it's good that for the business owner to have some skin in the game, to feel that they are, invested in a security package. I think there's also a psychological trick there, because really great security is a team sport. So it's not just running behind the scenes. Great security is silent, meaning the things that are working are very, very quiet. But the team sport aspect, like the awareness I mentioned before, when you're getting emails, reporting the right emails, there should be that right level of engagement where the customers realize it. Now, whether they're signing on a line item to say, I'm purchasing this thing, or whether it's just wrapped into the broader package, I think that's up to each individual MSP's style and approach. Yeah. But I think, the mandatory, this is part of our offering is a huge, huge piece of it. I mean, I think in this day and age, it's just the smart way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And if I was starting an MSP from scratch, which I'd never do because I've seen what it does to MSP owners, but if I was starting an MSP from scratch, that's how I would do it. I would have a standard stack. I would have a standard way of doing things. And if you're not willing to invest this much to be protected at the highest level, then I'm not going to work with you. And yes, that would mean I would be turning away clients. But the clients I do have, I'd have less hassle, a lot less hassle in my business.
Yeah, and that hassle, that's two front, right? So one hassle is, of course, in the relationship and how you communicate it to your customers. The other hassle is the operational side of things. I think if I bring it back to Guardz for a moment, like if I think about how Guardz was actually formed, or how our founders kind of got together to solve the gap in security for small businesses, one of the main principles that they undertook, aside from the core security platform, is that the security is only good as the operational ability of the MSP themselves. So if they're not able to utilize that tool, they're not, the average MSP is not a threat hunter, right? MSSPs start to get into the world of that's maybe they could operate their own SOC, but the average MSP doesn't have time for that, right? You're running a business, you have your technicians, you're rolling trucks, you're on site, and you're dealing with problems every day remotely. And I think the operational ability to implement security is really, really key. So that's a huge principle for us. And we do it from an MSP first perspective, always thinking about the multi-tenant experience, always thinking about how you would need to make decisions globally or dive into specific customers. And then we have a couple other principles around helping you grow your business with our things like the prospecting reports and our growth hub, hosting webinars and things like this, just to help educate and bring other awareness to the community. And then, of course, retention is a huge part of your challenges as well, right? Like I mentioned, quiet security is sometimes it bubbles up but through the customers, by them saying, hey, nothing's happened, all is quiet, why am I paying you? And of course, you need to be able to have those strategic or security business reviews on a regular basis to show them, here's what's going on, here's what's happening. And those reports, I think, are a really important part of our offering as well.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. This was great. I love the psychological principles that you bring into this discussion. I mean, some of the things as you're talking about them, I'm thinking that's very obvious. Like, why didn't I think of that? Or it felt very natural. But I think it's important that we stop and we listen and we think about our own habits and our own approaches in order to succeed. I think there's been some great content today. I thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just finish on one point, which is some MSPs will have watched this and thought, I'm not comfortable with that. I think it's really important that you pick the things you are comfortable with. I've worked with so many business owners for so long that I know that if someone says, this is a great idea, but you deep inside emotionally think, I don't like that idea, you're not going to do it. You're just not going to implement it because you're the business owner and you're not responsible to anyone. So I think often the best thing to do is to pick and choose. You might look at that checklist that we talked about at the end and go, that's a really clever idea. I'm going to use that, or I'm going to use the new clients as advanced by standard. But I don't feel right upgrading my existing clients and forcing them to do it, and that's fine. I think exactly as Doni said there's so many things that you can do. You have to just pick and choose what you feel is right for you, and it is very much a feeling thing rather than a thinking thing.
Yeah. So maybe from your perspective, Paul, maybe that people are meeting you for the first time, and would love to understand how to kind of get a hold of you, get more of you, hear your podcast, whatever it might be. Can you maybe do a little self-promotion?
Yeah, sure. I'll do a 10-second one. So all my contact details are at mspmarketingedge.com. We have the podcast, as you say, Doni. It's the world's most listened to podcast about MSP marketing. In fact, we reached 5 years old in November, which is nuts because it was only going to be a 12-month thing that's just kept going. It's out every single Tuesday on any podcast platform and on YouTube. And I work directly with 700 MSPs around the world, but we only work with one per area. So if you go onto mspmarketingedge.com, you can put your zip code or your postal code wherever you are in the world, and we'll tell you if we're already working with someone in your area or if your area is free. And that's at mspmarketingedge.com.
That's perfect. That's great. Thank you for that. And I think, Q&A, if you have some questions, let's throw them into the LinkedIn directly, and our team will jump on that and answer those questions to the best we can. Paul can also take a look. And I think we'll wrap it up. I promised I wouldn't go past 45 minutes today, so we'll wrap it up a few minutes early. And I thank everyone for joining. Again, thank you, Paul. It's been great, and look forward to next time.